Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, ba, ba-dum, bum, bum. And we're live. Welcome to the first episode of Movie Bros Podcast, where you're gonna find your fans of movies reviewing and rating movies. I am your host, Nary Science. With me is a special guest. Hopefully, she stays on as a permanent a co-host. But I don't want to put that on her. I don't want to put that pressure on her.
No pressure, no
Uh,
pressure.
but this is Hilda. Welcome, Hilda. Say hi.
Hi guys.
Hi. All right. So, for those of you who are listening to us, just know that you could watch the video of us, and you could watch us live whenever we do go live. But you could watch the video that lives on forever on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Normally, we're gonna have other hosts on here as well. It's gonna be a rotating cast, including those such as Mike Mercadal and Jeff Mercancini, who, if you're listening to this, you might know from either the martial arts movie podcast, and or the What's Up Bro podcast that we've been doing for 11 years now. This is gonna be fun. I'm very excited. It's taken me 11 years to finally succumb to the fact that I have to do a movie review podcast, because every iteration of What's Up Bro has been some type of like, and today and last weekend movies, and like little segments and stuff. And then we did Kickflix, which is a martial arts movie podcast. And then I was like, I want to review all movies, not just martial arts movies, because I love martial arts movies, but I love all movies. So here we are. Episode 1, we're gonna be reviewing Black Adam and Back to the Future 2. Not simultaneously, because that would be confusing. Um, but Hilda came up with the reasoning why are we gonna be reviewing Back to the Future 2, Hilda?
Right. Why do we jump to two? Why didn't we start with one? Well,
Correct.
this month, let me see, I think it was 1989. We've got like the 33rd anniversary of Back to the Future 2. The other two were summer blockbusters, but we had this one in November. It was November 29th,
There you
1989.
go.
So we got
So
33 years.
which is bonkers, because I remember when this movie came out. Like that's like I'm 41. For those of you who don't know, I don't care about mentioning my age, because it's about how young you are on the inside. But it's pretty crazy that we remember that movies came out. All right, so let's start off with Black Adam, this little independent film that was released 3.5 weeks ago from the time of this recording. Black Adam, to give the plot summary, is in ancient Kandak, Teth Adam was bestowed the almighty powers of the gods. After using these powers for vengeance, he was in prison, becoming Black Adam. Nearly 5,000 years have passed, and Black Adam has gone from man to myth to legend. Now, free, his unique form of justice, born out of rage, is challenged by modern day heroes who form the Justice Society, which include Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Atom Smasher, and Cyclone. That is the official plot summary. So, first of all, Hilda, did you watch this movie weekend of, like the weekend it came out?
Last weekend.
Okay.
So was that the did
No,
it?
no,
No,
we're
it
at,
came
we're
out.
at week 3 now. Week 3.
Oh,
Week
okay.
4
So
almost.
yeah, where are we? We're in November. We were out of the country for a couple weeks. So we just got back and we were like, I gotta go see this movie. Um, this was actually a superhero that I knew nothing about.
Okay.
It might be the first movie, both DC or Marvel, that where I wasn't familiar with the superhero, but
Yeah.
I'm all for anything superhero. So I was like, yeah, let's dive in and go. So coming from somebody who does not have backstory on this character, I really enjoyed the movie.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
Um,
So, what were your initial thoughts of the movie?
Overall, I loved it. I left with a ton of questions, but I was expecting that, right? Like being somebody who didn't have backstory on any of the characters in this. But the was Cyclone, her visual effects. I know I'm jumping around here, but it was like
Sure.
visually, as an artist, visually, I was like in love with her special effects whenever she
Yes.
would come in.
Yes. Yes.
Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. We could do. I
I
mean,
was
it's
like,
been a month.
should
It's
I
been a
ask that
month.
first?
It's been a month. That's fine. I think you could do spoilers. Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way. But no, visually, I loved it. I was entertained. Again, like I had a ton of questions, but I think that was to be expected. So like if you had more knowledge of the character going into it, you're probably gonna have a totally different reaction to the movie than I did.
Well, I knew very little about Black Adam per se. My knowledge of Black Adam was that he was the I knew that he was a counterpart to Shazam. I knew that he had the same powers of Shazam, but was more of a um I always knew him as a villain. I don't know if that's accurate, but I just knew him as a villain. I saw him in one animated movie. It was Superman versus Batman, and it was and then Black Adam was there. um so my knowledge of the character is very, very narrow. I will say it's not this is not the first movie for me. Like for you saying that this is the first superhero movie that you knew nothing about. I have gone into multiple. I didn't know anything about Doctor Strange going into Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know anything about Guardians. The Guardians, to me, anything that's space related, I never read as a kid. Anything that had to do with space, Silver Surfer, like I know who these characters are, but I don't know anything really about them. So
Gotcha.
same thing goes for Black Adam. I knew who Black Adam was before going into this, but I don't know anything about him. I just knew he was Shazam's counterpart. And I knew that both Shazam and Black Adam could take it to Superman, because Superman, one of Superman's weaknesses that I don't know if I don't know if most moviegoers, non-comic book readers know, is magic. So I know that because their powers are magic based, Shazam and Black Adam can take it to Superman very well. Um, and that's really all I knew. And so I went into this movie and I was like, I don't know anything, but I'm a huge fan of The Rock. I don't know anybody who's ever listened to any of the podcasts I do knows that yeah, The Rock can get it. Or I can get it. I'll take it from The Rock. It's fine. I'm not, I'm not, well, I'm not into labels, okay? No, but I love The Rock and any movie he's done. I will say this though, I have a friend who watches, like, she's a huge fan of Melissa McCarthy. So she watches and she quote unquote loves everything that Melissa McCarthy's done. She purchases everything Melissa McCarthy's done. And I'm not that way with her. I'm not that way with anybody. But like I didn't buy Baywatch. I've never watched the movie Doom. I'm not like there's some things of The Rock that even I'm like, hey, I support you from afar, bro. I'm not gonna go spend my money on this
Okay.
crap. But I was a huge fan of The Rock, and I knew this was a passion project of his. So I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fun. I thought it was I had a great time. The special effects, to go on to what you were saying about Cyclone, I thought the movie itself in general had a much higher special effects than most other DC projects.
Yeah, Dr. Fate's like golden shards, like whenever they would
Oh
come down,
yes,
every single time they appeared on screen, like I was like, wait, did he just say something? Because I just missed it. It was literally, I was just so taken aback by these. I mean, they looked like gold shards, like just coming down, like the shields, and cyclone. Like I know I said before, but like cyclones, whirlwind of colors, just visual eye candy. I wanted to like eat the screen whenever she would appear.
she was great. I liked her as an actress as well. She played, even though we got a little bit of her backstory, which was kind of dramatic. Her backstory being dramatic, we did not like. She didn't play it angry, and she didn't play. You know what I mean? She could have played it very differently, and it would have been
Yeah,
okay. It's just her choice, but she did not. She chose like a lighter way of viewing things, and I very much dug it. I dug the special effects, but you know what I liked about this movie in general, is the theme of this movie of like we have the two superheroes, right? In the plot summary, we have like the Justice Society versus Black Adam, and Black Adam's like, my way of justice is killing people. And then I like, first of all, we haven't even talked about Hawkman. How great was Hawkman?
I
Jesus.
know. Or Adam. I mean, was it Adam Smasher? I mean, like his kind of campy. Like
Yeah.
he's like I'm here, guys. Like
Yeah.
what
Like the
but
rookie.
but
He's
he
just
would
a
come
rookie.
through,
Like
right?
he's just
He'd
like
come
he's
through like when he was needed. He's like, I got you. Like when
yeah.
the freaking the arm and the
I think
um
yeah. Everything you're saying, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with everything. And I love Hawkman. Both I've read comics with Hawkman in them. I haven't read a Hawkman comic, but I've read plenty. And then I watched DC's Legends of Tomorrow, so I know about Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and so I know more of that mythology. But I love the fact that Hawkman was a very black and white. There's good and there's bad, and that's it. There's no in between. And then he, like that whole lesson of the movie where it's like, no, 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 you're gonna have to learn that both of you guys are gonna have to learn that there's some middle ground.
it's
You have
funny you said that because my probably most standout moment from the entire movie is that moment where Isis says to them, or says to this American Justice Society or just Society of America, it's like, where have you guys been for 27 years,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So they swoop in and they just assume that they know what's going on, how to fix it,
Right.
and they're already passing judgment on like, you're doing this wrong, you need to
Right.
stop. And it's just kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And she's just like, where have you been for 27 years? This is our reality.
Yeah.
Instead of coming in and saying, okay, what's going on? How
Right.
can we help? And she was so angry at that moment, it's like,
I thought it was perfect. You're right. I agree. I thought it was a great moment.
and that, I mean, I feel like that can go into a lot of layers, right? Like that,
Yeah.
that can get
Yeah.
really divisive as to like how you want to interpret that. But it's true. It's like, if it's great that you're this society that's coming in to help people, but know where you're going,
But
know the situation, know what's going on,
and
and then assess the
she called her
best way.
bullshit. She called her bullshit. She said,
Right.
all this time, you didn't come here to disperse justice. You came
Right.
here because he's here. You came
Right.
here to just immediately pass judgment on him and take it. You didn't like we've been under a terrorist rule for 27 years, and you
Yeah,
didn't
like
come here
our whole people to put like, dude, we've been oppressed for like ever. Like, where have you been? Like now you show up.
yeah. Which is again, it's funny because it's a great moment. It's a great theme for the not just a movie but in life. We like, well, it's that theory of like world police. Governments go around policing the world type of deal. But on top of that, I think it makes it very difficult for these superhero movies because you're like, where is Superman? Where is, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, where is Batman? And where is like, why are these superheroes, especially like Wonder Woman and Superman specifically, that have in this movie universe already shown themselves, and B are not tied down like Gotham, like Batman is Gotham, right? Like that's like he's only Gotham, but Superman is worldwide, is a global hero.
right.
Even within the movies, he's a global hero. We've seen him in Men of Steel. We've seen him in Batman versus Superman, saving other parts of the world.
Yeah, like where are you guys?
Whereas like it's the conduct, like I don't. That's the bad part of Earth. I don't go into the part of
Well,
Earth.
and clearly, like you're saying, like the people of this country are aware of these superheroes. The kid's like a super fan. He's got his
Yeah,
whole room decked
yeah.
out in like movie posters and of everybody. He's like he's almost training him on how to be a superhero.
It was great. That was fantastic too. That whole montage, that whole scene when he was like, "Nah," he's like, "Oh, we got to change your name." And he's like, "10th Adam is a strong name," and he's like, "Yeah, it's a bit outdated."
He's like,
It's a
you've
bit
got
outdated.
to have a tagline. You've got to say it before. You got to
Yes,
say it before.
that's
Like
great.
he's like his coach.
That's one of my favorite movies. That's one of my favorite moments. And again, I know they built it that way and they set it up that way, but every time he said, "Tell him the Men in Black sent you," when he did it too late, it was funny because he was like, "No, you got to do it before." And then when he did it, and the guy was already falling, he's like, "Tell him the men," and then that worked well. And at the end, that big dramatic actiony moment when he said, "Tell him the Men in Blacks," and I was like, "Oh my god!" It was just like it was everything.
He's like,
Yeah, that's it.
oh,
Yeah.
I finally got it. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it worked. It worked on multiple levels. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I am a known DC fan. I like DC movies. I'm not anti DC. I know a lot of people for some reason at this society are like, if you're either a Marvel guy or a DC guy, and I think both publishers have made amazing movies, and I think both publishers have made garbage. So I'm looking at you, Thor, Love and Thunder. Anyway, so but I was a huge fan of this movie. I really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fun. I didn't have any. What questions did you have? Because you said you had questions. It left you with questions, and I'm
I
interested
did.
in
So
what questions did you have.
I got really well. So when like the first time I heard Shazam, I was like, wait a minute,
Oh,
there's a tie in here. So
right.
then I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
digging, and then I thought that was really interesting. I loved I was like, ooh, I was like, wait, are we going back to Egypt? Because that's like a whole other topic for me. Like I love, like, what was it? I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, probably longer. Whenever like the King Tut exhibit came through Fort Lauderdale, like I was like, oh, I'm going. My mom was like,
Oh,
do
okay.
not touch anything. My mom was like, if you're gonna go, do not touch anything.
Yeah, it's everything's it's a curse. Everything's a
Yeah,
curse.
she's like, do not
Yeah,
touch. I'm like, okay, I won't touch it, mom. I love you. I won't
yeah,
touch it.
yeah.
So yeah, so then I was digging and I was like, oh, cool. Like he draws these powers from these like Egyptian deities, these Egyptian gods. And then Shazam is actually this breakdown of like, shoot, Hera, Amma. There's like like every letter in because I was like, that's kind of a funny word. what does that mean? So then it's actually every letter in Shazam stands for a different god, and then it's
And
like
that hasn't even been explained yet. Not even in the movie Shazam. I don't know. Did you ever watch the Shazam movie?
no.
Okay, so you haven't watched Shazam. All
I
right,
know that,
so
but I knew of the Shazam
yeah,
character. I just didn't know of Black Adam. So then
right.
I heard Shazam, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got so many questions. So I went down this like rabbit hole of these six Egyptian gods, and like each one of them has a power. It's like stamina and speed and strength, and so he's getting like that. He's getting the strength from all these gods, and then that's increasing his power. But he's has all of these elements that he's getting from each one of those gods.
Yeah.
So that was a big like, ooh, need to go look that up after the movie. So
Are you gonna
that was
watch the movie Shazam?
the what?
Are you gonna watch the movie Shazam now?
Yeah, now I want to go back and watch that because then I was also reading. There's like apparently at some point there's like beef. There's like beef between Shazam and Black Adam. So I was like, ooh, like what have I missed?
Yeah,
So
it's the
apparently a
same
lot
coin.
because I know nothing.
It's two different sides of the same coin. Originally, Black Adam was gonna be in the Shazam movie. He was gonna be the villain of the Shazam movie.
Yes,
And
I
that was
read that.
and then The Rock was like, no, like they were like already starting pre-production with that. And then The Rock was like, no, man, Shazam deserves his own movie. Black Adam deserves his own movie. Like let's take it slow.
Yeah.
And it's now a very well-known story where The Rock, Dwayne Johnson has talked about this often, when he says this movie's been 15 years in the making, and throughout multiple ownerships of Warner Brothers Pictures, Warner Brothers Films, and DC movies, and people, every time they get a new head honcho or a new guy, they bring him in and they're like, so what do you want to do another superhero? And he's like, no, Black Adam. And they're like, "No, but is there another one?" And he's like, no, Black Adam. Like, he just was Adam, and because of his popularity and because of his massive global box office appeal, they had no choice but to be like, okay, I guess we'll give you
I
Black
guess
Adam.
we'll do
Like,
it.
yeah.
I mean, come
Uh,
on, it's rock. I'm a big rock fan too. So
yeah,
my
yeah,
my first was like one, I was like, cool, superhero movie. I'm in. Like every single one, I'm like, I'll watch it, you know? I'm like, I'll go in, no judgment. I'll go watch every superhero movie. But
sure.
two, then it was like, oh, it's The Rock.
Except Shazam. You haven't seen
I
Shazam yet.
haven't seen it yet. You know what? It's like, just some but
So
yes,
I
like
like the
I'm
movie Shazam. I will say this: I know we're not reviewing Shazam, but it kind of goes hand in hand with Black Adam. I do like the movie Shazam. There's two things that took me out of the movie, and one of them was the suit, like the superhero suit, the muscle suit. It was so blatantly obvious that the dude is wearing a muscle suit, and apparently, I'm learning this recently, that Dwayne The Rock is the first actor to not need a muscle suit. Like, he's the first actor. Even Henry
I
Cavill
was
at
gonna say, what
some
about
point
him?
Henry Cavill at some the suit, like, there's some suits, because there's apparently multiple suits per movie. There's some suits that show more of the quote unquote abs, and whatever. It's like whatever. But the Rock's apparently the first one that didn't need a single thing. With that
Anything.
said,
They're
I
like, we're
say
just gonna dip you in latex.
exactly. I
I don't
say
know if it's latex, but in my mind it's latex.
that's in my dreams, and in my fantasies. It is. I say that to say it's understandable that everybody has. So the majority of actors have used muscle suits, but I feel as if this guy Levi's, or whatever his name is, from Shazam, the muscle suit was so obvious, blatant, like it's so like too much. It would look like a Halloween costume from the Spirit Store. It was just like, oh boy, take it easy. And that took me out of the movie. The movie itself was fun, and I liked the movie, but that just took me out of the Shazam movie. That's why it's one of the very few that I've gone back to rewatch. I'm like, it's fun, but man, his that suit is really bad. It's just really bad. I'm like, oh boy.
It's like,
Um, I'm interested to see how because Shazam 2 is coming out already, and I'm interested to see now that's been prolonged because of presumably because of the end credit scene that we haven't even talked about, the end credit scene of Black Adam.
I know that's so. In the beginning, I got excited, and I was like, "Wait, we're talking spoilers?"
Yeah.
Because
Well, I mean, that's not even a spoiler. Everybody knows this now, right? Like, there's not.
they know it now, right? I mean, it's been out long enough. I feel like
It's not only that, but it's been out everywhere. Like, it's like the news. Like, you literally had 3 days to watch this movie before Henry Cavill himself was like, "Well, here we go. Now everybody knows." And I was like, "What?" Like, so I'm glad that I watched it the day it was released, because I was like, "Thank God it was not ruined for me," because it was immediately 3 days. People didn't even give it a week. They were like,
And see,
nah.
so for me, I was a little out of the loop because we were out of the country. So we were on a work trip. Well, my husband was on a work trip and I tagged along. And so I was kind of disconnected. I wasn't really like following a lot of stuff online and stuff. So I feel like I got a little bit of a buffer.
Right.
So when that end scene came up, wasn't expecting it, but I got super excited because yeah, my husband looked at me too, like we were in the theater and he came up and my husband's just like, because I was
I
already like,
Yeah, I watched the movie with my wife and my kids and a friend of mine, and the like high pitches that were coming out of me in front of my children, and my children was like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And I was like, "Shut up! You don't understand. It's Henry Cavill, and it's a big deal." So presumably, the reason why Shazam Part Two has been pushed back because they don't have a release date right now because they had a release date for like 2 years, and then
okay,
about a month, I want to say about 6 weeks ago now, mid-August, they just said, oh, it's been pushed back, but they don't have a date, but they're still showing trailers, presumably because they're now shooting scenes with Henry Cavill and or Dwayne Johnson.
who
That
forever has been busy with The Witcher and
right,
Enola
correct.
Holmes and everything else he's been doing.
Exactly. So now that he's not doing those things anymore, so that's the presumption around Hollywood is around the geek world is that the reason why Shazam 2 got pushed back is because they're doing extra scenes because now things have changed. So now you have Superman, quote unquote, Henry Cavill is in. So now it's a whole different. It's a. I think that I'm very excited. I'm very excited. And
He's
James Gunn just got announced as the first CEO of DC Films. I'm like, come on, man. It's a good time to be a fan of superhero movies in general. Again, I'm a big fan of DC movies, but I'm a big fan of Marvel movies too. I just
yeah.
watched Wakanda Forever last night. So in the same week, I rewatched Black Adam on Tuesday for my daughter's birthday. I took her to see it again. We both fans of it. And then 2 days later, I'm watching Wakanda Forever, and I was like, I don't. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I don't discriminate. DC, Marvel, I'm like let's go. I
correct.
came I came to comic books late, right? So growing up, I came to superheroes early, but actual comic books late.
Right.
Comic books was like that was an extra expense. It was an extra splurge. So, but I mean, my first like watchings of like superheroes on TV were before Christopher Reeve. We had George Reeves in the old black and white
Right.
Batman. Sorry,
Right.
Superman shows, and then you had the Hulk was on in the 80s. Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, and like I wanted to be Linda. I was like, can I be Linda Carter when I grow up? Like
Yes.
how cool? Like
Like, oh yeah, you want to be Wonder Woman? No, I want to be
I want
Linda
to be Linda
fucking Carter.
Carter, Wonder Woman. Like,
Yeah.
so my love of superheroes came from that,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
My first comic book or graphic novel, really, I was 15, so I wasn't like a kid because again, that was like extra money that it was just
No.
like, you know. So a friend of mine in my freshman year of high school gifted me volume one of The Sandman, which I
Uh,
know we're not even gonna. That's like
I
a whole other thing.
I still haven't gotten into that, but yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was my introduction to like comic books was The Sandman. And so The Sandman for me when like this new show that's out now, this also has been like 20 years in the making because it's such a massive story that this thing has been teased for like 20, like someone will pick it up, they say we're going to do this, like you can't do this in a movie, you can't do this in a trilogy, this world is so big. So and I'm getting off
No,
topic,
all
but
right,
I came to actual comic books very late. Like I was already a teenager.
right,
But superheroes, that was a childhood thing on TV for me.
right.
And so now it's just, well, I mean, not now, but like, I don't know, what the last 20, 25 years of just these mega blockbuster superhero movies coming out. It's so exciting. I feel like it's really exciting for our generation, whether you were a kid growing up with comic books or you were a teenager.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way, by the way. I as a kid had a handful of comic books, like a handful, because I grew up poor, right? It was just money. My mom was like, I don't have money for los muñequitos, is what she used to call it.
Right.
And she, so we grew up poor, so I didn't have a lot. We didn't have expendable cash like that. So I had literally a handful of comics, maybe I don't know, 10 comic books that I've had. And it took me a long time to be able to financially get to the point where I'm like, oh, I could spend money on me. I could spend money on stuff that, just on hobbies for it. Like, if you look behind me, you see a bunch of these Funkos. But so comic books, I didn't even then I started reading comic books when DC turned into when they redid their universe and they did the new 52. It was like, oh, this is a perfect time for me to get back into it or to get into it because everything has been reset, so I could go back into it as new. So that's my level of comic books is around that era. I haven't read like every comic book, and even with any fandom that I have, whether it be with sports or with I'm not that guy who remembers specific stats. Like even like if
Right.
I'm a big football fan, but I'm not gonna be like, well, Super Bowl 42 had the blah 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 blah, and it was 185 yards rushing. Like I'm not that guy. I'm just like, oh, that was a cool game, and that's it. That's all I really like. That was like all I know. Same thing goes with comic books where I'm like, that guy was cool. It's like, well, the artist that drew him originally, and I was like, what? And like all of those things I don't know. So I'm not that kind of fan, but I've always been a fan of comics, but I've never had the means to which to delve in properly, I guess. But these movies have been tremendous. It's funny because I
Yeah.
tell my daughter just turned 11 this week, and my son turned.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And then and my son turned 8 a month ago. And when I explain to them, when I say things like, when my daughter's like, oh, some kid called me weird. I'm like, oh, but weird is great. Like, that's a good thing. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I was a weird kid. And they're like, you were? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I liked comic books when I was a kid when nobody liked comic books. And she doesn't understand that. My kids don't understand that there was a time where liking comic books as a child made you an outcast.
Yeah.
She doesn't realize that. And I was like, I was never a true outcast because I also like sports, so I was never like shunned or whatever, that kid that that stereotype. But I told her, I was like, yeah, no, I remember talking about comic books to my friends and they were looking at me like I had 3 heads. And my kids don't understand that. They're like, what? But comic books, everybody likes superheroes. I'm like, no, but now everybody likes
Yeah.
superheroes now, not back then.
Yeah, dude. And Neri, you and I are the same age, so it's like, dude, the 80s were rough. Like
Yeah,
kids were
man,
mean.
kids were
Kids were
mean.
so mean. And it's like I was so it wasn't like a comic but a nerd, but I was a nerd too. It was like
Yeah.
I was a little bit of the outcast, It was like I was into art, and then I was in band. Like,
Yes. Yes.
I had like all this stuff, things that I thought were super cool. Like I loved to remember Book It. Remember the Book It
Yes. Of
program,
course. Of
right?
course.
Dude, I won my badge like every year, and I wore that thing with pride. Like
I
I thought it was
remember I
super
remember
cool.
I remember forging the paper that said I read those books, because I did not read those books, but I remember Book It. Yeah, of course. I
Man, the Book It program was great. It was like I think it was
Pizza?
like
Hello, you get Pizza Hut for saying that you read a book? Yeah, I read that. Sure, whatever.
except I actually read all the
I
books.
know.
Not only that, man, I used to love to do dioramas. I would do book reports. I would do book reports for fun, like when they weren't assigned, and then I would ask to present them to the class. I was that girl.
So, can I
Like,
present my
like when I say I was
voluntary
a nerd,
diorama?
I was like a whole other
Yeah,
level of
yeah.
nerd.
But it's great though. Like that's like I don't know. That's what I try to explain to my daughter. I'm like, being weird is good. You don't
It
want to
is.
be,
It
yeah.
is. It's
If you're not the weird one, you're just a boring one. That's what I tell my daughter. I'm like, if you're not weird, you're boring. I'd rather be weird, man. Give me the weird all day.
now
Weird
weird.
means interesting.
Weird can be hard. It can be hard to be weird,
Oh,
but
oh, I tell my daughter, she's 11, but I talk to her very like honestly. I'm like, look, man, these years are gonna suck for you. They're gonna suck. They're gonna get better, but I promise you, it's gonna be for your. It's just gonna be. It is what it is. And I try to explain to her like,
yeah,
and show her by example. Like I was a nerd and I was a kid. Blah blah blah. She's like, really? And it's like, yes, but when you get older, you'll find people that have your same interests, and that's when it becomes fun. When
yeah.
you're not hiding who you are, and then you become that beacon, and people are like, I'm gonna go to that girl who likes to draw and stuff like that. I'm like, that's gonna be you.
Yep.
You'll be
And
fine.
even as a kid too, it's like, all right, even if you don't, I don't know, it's like even if you don't have like 50 friends, but you find those 2 or 3 friends and you
That's all
got
you
your
need.
you got
That's
your
all you
tribe and like you're good,
You're good to go,
You're
man.
good. You'll make it through. You'll make it
You
through.
make it through. You'll be
Hey,
fine.
I did.
So, all right. So, time for the review. Out of one, from 1 to 5, right? Now, Kickflix rules is you give your own meter. For example, if you're watching Black Adam, you could say between 1 and 5 lightning bolts, or between 1 and 5, and we come up with the most ridiculous kinds of set, like between 1 and 5
Golden
speed of
shards,
golden shard, golden shards.
cyclone spins.
There you go. Between one of so how many? So between 1 and 5, what would you rate Black Adam?
On a first viewing, I would say for me 4 out of 5.
Okay, 4 out of 5. What though? You got to come
Four
up
out
with
of five golden shards.
golden. There you go. 4 out of 5 golden shards. That's great, man. But that's a good review, right? That's a good. I would give it 5 because I'm that guy. I saw it twice. I fell in love with it. The whole time I was very scared that this movie was gonna suck. And then I saw, and I'm one of those guys that I don't really watch trailers to movies that I know for a fact that I'm gonna watch. I'm like, I already, the whole point of a trailer in my mind is to get you to want to watch the movie. If you already know you're gonna watch it, then why spoil it for yourself? But I couldn't avoid these trailers. I typically avoid superhero movie trailers. I avoided the Wakanda Forever trailers, but the Black Adam trailers I couldn't avoid them, and I couldn't help but get my hopes up. I'm like, oh man, I'm trying very hard to stay well grounded and just not put my, I don't want to. But I thought it lived up to the hype, and I was very happy with it. It has a 90% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, 40% critic score. So that's a huge discrepancy, but I will give it 5 out of 5 late catchphrases. That's what I would give it. 5 out of 5 late
5 out
catchphrases.
of 5 late catchphrases. I
I
like
did.
it.
Oh, tell him that the black. Oh, the guy. Okay.
I
Um.
did. I have one other before we move over to Back to the Future 2, real quick. I had
Oh,
something I did for you, Neri. So my gamer page, right?
correct. For
So
those of you who don't know what I was going to mention at the end, but yes,
oh,
Hilda is a huge gamer girl, and her handle is at tabletop game girl. So gamer girl,
gamer girl.
I'm sorry, tabletop gamer girl. So I'm assuming those are board games in the background
No,
behind you.
this is actually like our front room, but the room next door is it's our dining room, which doubles as our game room.
Okay.
So that's I may have to maybe next time I'll have to be in there so you guys
No,
can
that's
see
all right.
it.
But just to prove to the audience how big of a fan you are of board games. You are a
Yes.
huge fan, huge fan.
Yeah.
I would say you might have more board games than I have Funkos, which is very impressive considering the fact that board games typically are larger.
We had to
Ju-
make it it's
yeah,
literally a library. It's like this, it's like wall to wall, and it's packed. We're starting to stack them on top.
yeah.
But because you love Funkos, Neri, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but it's not Black Adam, but DC does have a Funkoverse board game, and it's 2 to 4 players. The ages are 10 plus. So I thought about that might be something you could play with your kids if you're looking for an idea. But it features Batman, Batgirl, Joker, and Harley Quinn, and it's a tabletop game from Funko.
That's great. Yeah, I'll look into that.
So I can send you more info on that one. But
Yes,
yeah,
fantastic.
it's actually published by Funko, designed by Prospero Hall. But those are fun. The Funkoverse board games are fun. I mean, pick a franchise, they probably have a Funkoverse game, and the characters you're playing with are actually little mini Funkos on the board,
Oh, that's pretty cool. I think
which
I
is
have
really
some,
cute.
not for DC, but yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so Funko DC board games. All right.
Yep. And there's a Wonder Woman board game, Challenge of the Amazons from Ravensburger publisher, but that one also is age 10 plus, so family friendly. I could send you a whole bunch of other DC board game recommendations that are like 14 plus, but I figured I know you've got some younger family members at home, so Wonder Woman, Challenge of the Amazons, and the DC Funkoverse games might
So
be
the
fun.
DC Funkoverse, I'm looking it up online, and it says DC Comics 100 pack. What does that mean?
104 pack.
Yeah, it says 100 pack.
Look up
Oh,
strategy.
it's just like 100 because it's
Oh, yes, that's it.
right, but it says 100. So I'm just and then there's another one that says DC Comics 102 2-pack. That
So
may be yeah.
those are expansions. So you can
Oh,
actually add superheroes and expand the board game.
oh, that's fun.
Yep. So
Yeah.
you can add additional characters and your board game gets bigger, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna buy. Well, I'm gonna get it right now. I'm buying it right now. Well, thank you very much.
I
Thank
figured
you.
you can get those and maybe save them for the holidays. Have the kids
Yes,
open them at Christmas.
absolutely. And then that would be great. Well, thank you very much. All right, so that is a wrap on the Black Adam portion of our podcast. We are moving on, as they say, moving on. That is a wrap on Black Adam. We are moving on to Back to the Future 2.
Yes.
As we talked about before, it's the 33 year, is it 33? 33-year anniversary,
33
correct?
years.
33-year anniversary for Back to the Future 2. If you are listening to this podcast and you have not watched Back to the Future 2, I first of all, thank you for listening. But why are you not? Why have you not seen Back to the Future 2? By this point, it's
So chaotic. I love it so much.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. So Back to the Future 2, again, if you've known the Back to the Future trilogy, I believe in my heart, I've said this multiple times, is the best movie trilogy of all time. But like I stand and I would die on that hill, and I know people are like, just throw out other names and other great trilogies, and I'm like, that's fine and that's great. But I believe that Back to the Future trilogy in general is the best one. So the plot synopsis for Back to the Future Part 2 is, in this zany sequel, that's actually a word used in the official synopsis, time traveling duo Marty McFly and Dr. Emmett Brown return from saving Marty's future son from disaster, only to discover their own time transformed. In this nightmarish version of Hill Valley, Marty's father has been murdered, and Biff Tannen, Marty's nemesis, has profited. After uncovering the secret to Biff's success, a sports almanac from the future, Marty and the Doc embark on a quest to repair the space-time continuum. That's a pretty decent synopsis.
And
This
fun fact, on a
Yeah.
budget of 40 million, this grossed 332.9 million worldwide.
Wow. So a little bit
Which
of
is
a
big
success.
money in the 80s.
Li-
Also,
That
keep
was
that
big money
in.
now. That's big money now.
It's big money now, but it's like,
In the 80s, that was like a billion. That was like crossing that $1 billion, like what we consider a huge thing. It's funny because people are like, "Oh, Black Adam is only at $400 million worldwide." I'm like, "Do you guys hear yourselves? You guys hear what the fuck you're saying?"
yeah.
Like
It
only
would
400
actually,
million.
you know what? It would actually be fun to take this like 300, basically 333 million and see what that would be in today's
Oh, we could,
dollars.
we have supercomputers at the palm of our hands.
Let's do it.
So
Because that
300
was my first thought. I was like, I looked that up and I was like, that's a lot of money. And then I was like, wait,
to
that's like even
1984,
1989.
1989.
Because I was like, that's even more money in 1989.
So 300, no, wait, so 300 million. So $300 in 1989 is $721 today. So I'm assuming
So
just
it's more
million.
than double
Yeah, so it's not, so that would be $721 million today
worldwide in today's
worldwide. Yeah,
dollars.
that's pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty,
for a movie with a budget of 40 mil, like
so let's see, 300. There you go. It would be, yeah, that's exactly what it would be. So pretty fantastic. Hello, wife.
Hello.
Say hi to everybody on the podcast.
Hello, everybody on the podcast.
Girl, is this open already?
Yeah, I can't separate it.
This is me doing my manly duties of opening up. I think you're gonna have to just cut this, honey. I think you're gonna have to just.
for a long time, my husband is my professional jar opener, and I think it was maybe 3 years ago at Christmas we had an as seen on TV gift exchange, where the only rule was whatever you brought had to have the as seen on TV logo, and I walked away
That's a
from
fantastic. First of all, can we just you? I like the fact that you're steamrolling over that idea. That's a fantastic idea for any gift exchange. Like it has
yeah,
to have
right.
that logo on there. Yeah, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, dude, that was this was an idea that I had for like 5 years, and every year was like something happened and we didn't get to it. And then it was the first year that we were in this house, and I was like, we are having an as seen on TV gift exchange. All that crazy stuff you see online, that's what I want people to bring.
That's
So I
fantastic.
ended up with Robo Twist. Robo Twist.
What is
I
what?
no longer need my husband as my jar opener. This
Oh,
thing
okay.
just like goes right on the jar, and then it has like two clamps that come down and has two other clamps, and one like holds the jar and the other one like twists it open. It
Oh,
takes
that's
like
fantastic.
it takes like 3 minutes to open the jar, but
3 minutes.
no, I'm exaggerating.
Oh, I'm like, wow, I thought you were gonna say it takes like 30 seconds. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you said three
No,
minutes.
but then like the practical side of my brain, first of all, I was like, oh, this is cool. Then the practical side of my brain was like, oh, for like my mom who can't open a jar. I'm like totally gonna get her one now. But yeah, as seen on TV gift exchange, you can totally use that idea if you want, by the
That's
way.
fantastic. All right, so Back to the Future 2. We're going back to Back to the Future 2. This is many people's favorite entry in the trilogy. Where does this lie in your eyes as far as in the trilogy?
Oh my God, don't do this to me, Neri. Back to the Future is like you were saying, Back to the Future is one of my favorite, not just trilogies, but like favorite movies ever. Like
Never, yeah.
my like in my like in my hierarchy of like my favorite movies, most of them are from the 80s. So it's like the Star Wars movies, the
Right.
Back to the Future movies, the Indiana Jones movies, Goonies, Flight of the Navigator. Like these are Ghostbusters. Like these are like my
Oh,
favorite
yes,
like
yes, yes.
realms, right? But Back to the Future for me, I don't know if I could pick one. I really can't. But Back to the Future to me, I think is one of the most fun because it's so chaotic. It is so crazy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of I thought so because I'm a dumb man. I always assume that because it's my favorite, it's everybody's favorite. I'm like, oh, everybody, this is clearly the best, right? Because I think it's the best, so therefore everybody must think it's the best. Like, and it wasn't until recently, and I say recently, like in the last 6 or 7 years, that I've met more and more people that were like, no, bro, no, part two and I'm like part one, and I'm like, what? And some people have said that part three is their favorite, which really shocked me because critically speaking, it wasn't critically the best one. But I was like, really? And all I kept focusing in on, I realized this 5 6 years ago, is all I kept focusing on as far as part two. Whenever I think about part two, I think about the hoverboard and I think about the sports almanac and I think about those things. But I will acknowledge now, thinking about it, that the movie Back to the Future 2 is really two different movies in one, right? It's the tone shifts. There's a tonal shift. It just everything changes when Marty comes back to 1985. Look at that. My lights just went on in my house. So everything changes. The tone changes, the movie changes, and it becomes a very dark movie. And
Very dark. It's
yeah,
very dark.
it becomes to the year 2020. Um, in real life, it's what it ended up
I
being.
mean,
What
if we're
2020
gonna go there, I mean, I know all kinds of fun facts about that, but I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't have to
So
go there.
yeah,
That can be another podcast. No, but it does. It's like, it's a very, it starts off and it's just like pretty much right off the bat, they're like, oh, whew, like crisis averted, right? Like we messed up, we fixed it. And then they get back to 1985 and it's not 1985. It's this whole other alternate just hellscape of what did we miss, right? So Doc and Marty are just like, we thought we fixed it. What did we miss? And it's just literally hell on earth at that
yeah,
point for them.
yeah, yeah. It's
And
actually
it does, it shifts quick.
it is actually 2018. And then but yeah, it becomes crazy because but I'm again because of everything in it. And as an adult, I will say as a kid growing up, my favorite parts of the film were the hoverboard and were like the future, right? All of
Right.
the technology, the crazy technology in the future. But I will say, as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate the second half of that film for what it is, for the acting and for the callbacks to the old West movie where he has the bulletproof vest underneath, like that gets called back in part three, and like it's pretty amazing. Like that was like the
Yeah.
first movie universe, right? That we were like, oh, this is like like they're connecting dots and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm a huge fan of this film from the jump, but there's so many things that this created. There was a Back to the Future ride, correct? And Universal, am I
There
correct?
was.
I don't remember that because
What?
because I grew up poor, Hilda. So I never got to go to Universal as a child. My first time in Universal was as already a late teen, like 18, 19 years old. So I by that time the ride was no longer available. The Back to the Future ride was no longer available.
Well, that was the
So
same for me. Like same thing with Disney. I did one trip to Disney as a kid
yeah,
with my
it's called
parents. One,
grad
that's
night.
it.
It's
I
called
didn't
grad
go
night.
back till I was a teenager. Now, when I did finally get to Universal, older, right? It was still there. So I was lucky enough to be able to ride it several times in my late teens.
Yeah.
I as like a teenager, I saved my money. It was my first annual pass that I ever bought. I think
Oh wow.
I was like 19. I was like 19 years old. I was in college and I was like, I'm
Good for
buying an annual
you.
pass.
Good.
I
I
was like,
didn't even, I wasn't able to afford an annual pass. I swear to you until I was like 27, 28 years old. Like
they're
that's
expensive,
like,
dude. Like
yeah.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
But my sister lived up here, right? So I had that benefit. I was like, cool. All I gotta do is like I need gas money. I need I need quarters for the turnpike because I didn't have a
Of
cell phone. I
course.
need quarters for the turnpike to call my mom. And I can crash with my sister and I can go to Universal. And they had it there and you were actually riding in a DeLorean and you would go through all these like different parts of time and it was such a great ride. It's now it's the same type of ride. It's now The Simpsons,
Okay.
which is
I,
really funny, but it's the same type of ride. Like
okay.
the structure of the ride did not change.
You know,
Just the,
so
they
it's funny that
reskinned
you
it.
mentioned that. It's funny that you mentioned that. My daughter, in June of this year, I took her to Universal for the first time. Or second time, I'm sorry, but we took her to Universal, and on our way there, because I'm the suburban dad, I have a minivan that has a DVD player in the back. And I was just tired of watching the same movies over and over again in the car, so I brought with me the Simpsons movie, and I put the Simpsons movie, which was again, I didn't even realize this as I was doing it. It was the introduction to the Simpsons. My kids had never heard of or watched anything of the
Oh,
Simpsons ever,
oh,
and this
funny.
was May. Yeah, it was like June of this year. And then when we got home, sure, there was a lot of questions like, "Who's this? Why are they yellow?" Blah. There was all these questions, and then when we got home, I guess my daughter was just going through Disney Plus, and The Simpsons are now owned by Disney.
Yeah, they're on there
And
now.
my daughter watched every single episode of
She
The Simpsons on her
oh
own.
man, like
Nobody
20
asked her.
plus years of Simpsons.
Every single 30 plus years,
30,
she's
30
watched
plus. Oh, what am I thinking?
every year. She's watched every episode, and everything she was doing because we got her an iPad for her birthday. So everything she was doing, she was just watching, and and then that was like the great motivator. I was like, "Did you do your homework?" No. Well, you can't watch your iPad until you can't watch The Simpsons until you do your homework. And
That's funny.
it was just one of these things. And she's watched, and now her birthday party that happened 3 days ago was Simpsons themed, and it was
Yes.
so difficult finding Simpsons party supplies. It was bonkers. Like we had to one of the cups we believe was from Latin America. Like we got it through Amazon, but it says Los Simpsons, and we're like, oh man, that's hilarious. Their shorts are different colors. Like why are Bart's shorts not blue? Why are they green? Like, and my daughter is very hyper focused. She focuses on all these little details. But my whole point is, it's funny that you say that about the Back to the Future ride because like that's all my daughter would want to do now is a
You
Simpsons.
guys should totally be the Simpsons family for Christmas because you've got a
Yeah,
little one and she
I
can be
know.
she can be
She could be
Maggie.
Maggie. Yeah,
Like,
she could be Maggie.
you guys you guys should totally make this happen.
And we could make the newest puppy. We could make him the cat. We can make him Snowball.
Yes.
He'd be dressed up as a cat. It'd be hilarious. Um. So yeah. So Back to the Future. Going back to the Back to
Yes.
the Future. Sorry, we go off on tangents, people. This is what we
I
do. This is
know.
how we.
Sorry.
This is how we podcast, man. We have ADD. I'm assuming Hilda, you have ADD because I have ADD, and
Little I'm all over the place.
we are one and the same. We are. But so Back to the Future 2. I again the comedy is great. The Zemeckis is at his finest, I believe. I mean, arguably Forrest Gump was his finest work, but this movie's he doesn't mess with these movies, man. I just love Back to the Future too. I'm a big fan of this movie. So there's more. There's like and it's one of those movies. It's one of those franchises really that spawn documentaries and books and like Did You Know and
Culture.
all this stuff. It's a whole culture based
There's a whole
upon
culture of like DeLorean fans and it's crazy. Like they use them to raise money for charity, and there's so many things that have come from this franchise.
It's fantastic. It's
Just
fantastic. Can you hear
amazing.
my baby crying in the background? I don't know if you can hear
No.
my baby crying. I could hear my baby crying. I think it's fantastic. Good. That's how she learns, people. You hear that?
Yeah. I heard it now. And fun fact, this one was delayed. This one was delayed a couple of years, right? Because of the like from when it was originally going to plan to come out, because Zemeckis was doing Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes, which
And
is
so
another
I
phenomenal
know
movie.
that was
Another
also in
phenomenal
that like
movie.
Hilda top tier of just like nostalgia love movies.
Yeah. So, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I love the fact that this is this movie part 2 and part 3 were filmed together, which was unheard of back then. That didn't happen for sequels to be filmed in the same. Can you hear my daughter calling me?
She wants to join the podcast.
I love the fact that this is our first episode, and my daughter's like, "Papi, papi."
We've had opening packages. We've had
Yeah,
baby crying. We've had
yeah,
no, the
yeah.
puppies
We
were
got
before, but I mean, there's been all kinds of stuff.
it's
I love
fantastic.
it. I love it.
It's fantastic. This is what happened. It's funny because I usually record at 8 p.m. or 8:30 when the kids are asleep, and I'm like, yeah, let's do 6. Why won't we do like? Because you're like, I get out of work at 5. I'm like, let's do it at 6 then, and then this, and I in my mind I was like, wow, I actually never do it at 6. I actually asked myself this get into my computer at
That's a
5:40.
good idea.
I was like, this is no, I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh wow, this is cool. We're gonna be done early. This is what my logic was. And I literally said to myself, why don't we record this early always? And now I'm answering my question now. Like the question is being answered for me. Anyway, so Back to the Future 2. So what would you be giving your rating for Back to the Future 2? You haven't even answered the question as far as which one in what order between Back to the Futures 1, 2, and 3, which is your
Ooh.
favorite and which is your is there a way to get you to be like
Okay, I would say I would go 1, 2, 3.
okay,
However, if we're talking about like tone, because again, they're totally different
which
movies.
ones have you watched the most? Which one have you watched the most?
Probably 2.
Okay, there you go.
It's tied between 2 and 1 for what I've seen the most. So I would say 1 and 2 and then 3. Can I do that?
Okay. Sure.
1 and 2. I think for me, 1 and 2, they're all married, right? Like they're all
Right,
married.
of course.
But 1 and 2 are like very tightly married, because then in 2, they don't just go back. They don't just have to go back and forth between 1985 and the future, but they also have to go back to 1955 because they messed up.
Right.
Right? So then you've got the whole recreated dance scene is again seen, and they can't run into each other. So now you've got 2 Docs, 2 Martys, you've got multiple Biffs, all again in 1985 in number 2. So I don't know. It's like 1 and 2 for me. They almost have to go like one really long movie.
Right. There is somebody edited that film. Did you ever see that? They did like a super edit where they did parts 1 and 2 merged into one another, like with the scenes where they
No,
come
is it like a
in.
fan? Like a fan
Yeah, like it's like
merge?
a fan edit.
Like
It's
a
like a
fan
fan edit.
fan film or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
No, but
Because
you have to send that.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. And then it's the same thing goes for like the Godfathers 1 and 2, where they did that for the Godfather 1 and 2, where they just made it chronologically. They edited it so it's like so you actually start off with Godfather 2, and then it goes into what becomes Godfather 1, and it becomes this whole like merge thing. So if you have 12 hours, watch that.
I mean, yeah, probably I can fit that into my schedule. I mean, it was like the pandemic. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna rewatch Marvel in like timeline order, and
Yeah.
I got through like the first 6 in a whole other order, and I was like, this is so chronological. This is great.
Yeah. I would say my favorite is probably part 2 still, but part 3 is creeping up on it. And I've noticed in the last few years I've rewatched part 3 more so than any other ones. And part 1 I've rewatched the least amount of times. Not to say I don't rewatch it,
Yeah.
but I there is a high discrepancy between the numbers of rewatching parts 2 and 3 and then 1.
I probably rewatched 1 and 2 the most.
Yeah.
Probably 1 the most, but 2 a lot. 3 is probably the one I've seen. I've seen
the
the
least.
least. But
I just love
this
watching
movie
that
too
kid.
has. Can
I
we
just
talk
love
about the
watching
cameos?
that kid in part 3 on the train grabbing his balls was hilarious to me. That was the thing. Did you ever notice that? Did you ever see
No,
that?
but now I want to go back and look.
So go
Let's
back
look
and watch it when
in 3.
when Doc gets married. Doc gets married. He comes back on the train, and the train is
Yes,
floating, whatever. Which
right.
underrated shot, right? There's a fucking train that's floating. God, for God's sake,
Yeah.
and don't talk about that enough. Anyways, his kid in that train is literally grabbing his balls like go fuck yourself. Like it's just literally the most. It's like what's going on. Like once you see it, you can never unsee it, and
Unsee
you
it?
can
Okay.
never. So again, I watched that movie. I probably watch it once every year and a half. I would say, yeah, probably every 18 months. If I'm going to be honest with myself, I don't watch it every single year, but I watch part 3 or 2 every year or so. And every time I watch part 3, I just that kid, I'm like mega focused on that kid just grabbing himself. Like, why is he grabbing himself? And why didn't the director? Nobody caught that. The editor didn't catch that. The director, nobody caught that. And says, hey, probably
Well,
don't do that.
apparently I didn't even catch it, and I've seen this movie like a lot. No, but
Yes,
I'm like, thanks,
but
Mary.
you
Thanks.
weren't on the staff. You're not part of the crew that's meant to like. There's a script supervisor that's supposed to be like watching this, be like, do we have it in the script where the kid grabs his balls? Like, is that a thing? Like, is that I don't.
Do we have another shot? Like, can we?
Yeah.
Like,
So
like literally, someone's getting paid to catch that kind of
there's
stuff.
multiple people getting paid for this. There's a script supervisor, there's an editor, and there's a director. There's multiple people. Oh, there's also cameramen, but there's multiple people getting paid that could have caught this, and nobody did. Which I like. I think it's fantastic. I'm like, it's like, all right, you stuck one through. So between 1 and 5, what would you rate Back to the Future 2?
Back to the Future 2. I would go 5 out of 5 out of 5. Wait, it's got to be something fun.
Right.
Let's go 5 out of 5. Let's go 5 out of 5 DeLoreans. That's
5 out
not
of 5
fun.
dollars. All right.
I could have thought of something I can think of.
It's out. Yes, but I do agree.
5 out of 5 hoverboards. Let's
There
do
you
5
go.
out of 5 hoverboards.
I was gonna say 5 out of 5 Pitbull hoverboards is what I would say, because you have to have power.
Oh, fun! So fun facts, cameos in this film. Can we talk real quick?
Yes. Yeah.
Cameos. You know, this was Elijah Wood's first movie.
Yes, or in the arcade.
Yes, he's one of
The
the kids
arcade.
in Cafe 80s.
Yeah.
Not just him, but we got Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's Needles.
Yep, Needles.
And you guys just did Dragon, right? The Bruce Lee story.
The Bruce Lee
On your
story.
Netflix?
Yeah.
So Jason Scott Lee is one of Griff's like goons, like one of his gang guys.
Oh, I think I knew that, but I'm pretty sure I forgot it, because as you're telling me, I'm like, really? And I'm like, wait, I think I did know that. Yeah, that's cool.
Last week when I knew we were like getting ready for this one, and I saw you guys were doing Dragon, and I was like, that's a fun little tidbit. I was like, I have to. Well, I looked it up. I was like, wait, am I remembering that correctly, or was that just something I made? But no, that was definitely something I remembered correctly. And yeah, I wanted to bring that up. So lots of fun cameos in Back to the Future too.
It's so great. I love the fact that when he goes back, the principal is still bald. And he goes, "Has that guy ever had hair?" I thought that was a fun line. I mean, it's just a line that sticks out of my head.
You know that Michael J. Fox actually found out that they were doing Back to the Future 2, watching Back to the Future 1 on VHS. It got to the end, and it was like, to be continued. And he called his agent. He was like, "I'm playing Marty, right? We're doing 2? No one told me."
Yeah, nobody told. But it's so, it's funny, because I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere where Zemeckis put that to be continued just to get the fans amped up, like just to get them, because the studio hadn't greenlit part 2 yet. I think I remember reading that, where he was just like, "I'm just gonna put this into the movie and then hope to get," you know what I mean? Because they made that doc. Have you seen the documentary, The Films That Made Us? Have you seen the episode on Back to the Future?
Yeah, I've seen that one. Have you seen Out of Time? That's another one.
Yes, I own it. I actually own
Out of Time. Is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
There was a whole thing with the hoverboard too. Like Zemeckis was like in an interview, and he was like, "Oh yeah, hoverboards are real. Like they've been around." They've been around forever.
I grew up as a child quoting that. I grew up as a child
People
lying.
are
My cousin has one. My cousin has one. Like I grew up as a child, like believing that was real. I believe that was real. I believe Dragon the Bruce Lee story was based on a true story. Like I believed all these things that movies told me because I was young and impressionable. So yeah, I
Mattel
believe
was
that.
getting like bombarded by calls of parents like, I've got to get my kid a hoverboard for Christmas. And they're like, it's not real.
It's not real.
Like, I
Fantastic.
don't know what
God
to
bless
tell your
him.
kid.
God bless him.
Right to Santa.
Well, we don't believe you. Zemeckis said it. It was real. It was real.
I got a this movie. I think it was God. I think it was before the pandemic. I think it was like 2018 or so. But we had the opportunity to at our Orlando MegaCon. They
Okay.
did a reunion panel for Back to the
Oh,
Future.
recently, yeah, that just happened, right?
It was before the pandemic, so it was like
Oh,
20. It was like 2018. It was like 2018, and we were going to MegaCon anyway. And then I found out that they had opened up. It's like it was a additional ticket that you had to get for this particular event. But on the same stage, it was like a little over an hour panel of just them talking about the movie. But it was Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Tom Wilson, and James Tolkien. So you had Biff, Strickland, Doc, Marty, and I sat there with my husband and my friends like a kid. Like they all came out on stage, and I was starstruck, like
yes, yes, yes.
stupid. Like I was like, oh my God. And it was the most fascinating hour of just like listening to them talk about not just their experience making the movie, but everything that the movie has kind of meant to them in the decades that followed. And it was like really, really heartwarming. The same weekend, Christopher Lloyd did like a one-on-one. It was like him and one other host. And that one they actually took questions from the audience. That experience was really cool. And at that same event, I got to meet Christopher Lloyd.
Oh, shut up.
Yes, and I brought him, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta tell Mary." I had like I still have it. I was like, it was like a special edition Loot Crate Funko that they did of Doc Brown, and I brought it because I was like, I'm gonna get him to sign my Funko. So I have like a Christopher Lloyd signed Funko Pop.
Oh, God bless. That's awesome.
And I walked up and I was like, I was all excited. I was like feeling good. I was just like so excited. Then it was my turn. So I'm like, do, 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 do. I walk up and I'm like this.
Oh no, you just blank. Just
I literally, they were like, what did you say to him? And I was like, I said hello.
you,
I was
you
like,
your brain broke. You're
I
like,
did. My brain broke. I was like,
nah,
hi, Mr. Lloyd. He
like
was
that.
like, hello, how are you? I'm like, I'm doing good. How are you? And he's like, great. He's like, what's your name? I'm like, Hilda. And he's like, signing my Funko. And I'm just like this. And so my husband, God bless him, he's just like, she's a really big fan. And I was just like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was
That
like, thank you. I was like, thank you so much. Literally, that's all that I had this like once in a lifetime opportunity. And all I could think to say was, yeah, thank you.
yeah, I have questions. First of all, how dare you be so amazing? And thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you. I literally was
Uh
just like, thank you. Like, that's literally all I could think about was like, I'm meeting Christopher Lloyd. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you.
That's good though. I mean, that's awesome. And they just same thing happened in New York Comic Con this year. A couple months ago, they were at New York Comic Con together, and it's a whole big deal. That's awesome, man. That brings me joy to see them together. All right, so thank you very much for checking out the episode. That's the first episode of the Movie Bros podcast. We'll be back. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media at Movie Bros Pod. That's Movie Bros with an S and then POD. The Twitter is Movie Bros _ pod. Everything else is at Movie Bros Pod. Check out our Facebook page. Make sure to like and subscribe to our Facebook and our YouTube. Everything there is Movie Bros Pod. You guys are very, very, very great. Thank you for that. Hilda, appreciate you very much. Oh, make sure you check out the other podcasts on the Geek Bro Network that include, but are not limited to, the Better Let Me Tell You podcast, the What's Up Bro podcast with me and Stephanie and Mike, the aforementioned Kickflix podcast that is going to be airing on this channel, but it's Jeff, Mike, and myself, the Cramocopia podcast with Jeff and Q, and the Shiver, the horror movie podcast. And am I missing one? Oh, Ciao Like at Best with Mike Valdez. So thank
He's
you very
not
much.
busy at all, guys.
At all.
He's not
Hilda,
busy at all.
Hilda's Instagram is at Tabletop Gamer Girl. So make sure you go to at Tabletop Gamer Girl. Follow her. She gives great reviews on not just movies like she did today, but on board games and tabletop games. So make sure you go follow her. She is phenomenal. Hopefully she'll be back, and hopefully she'll be want to be part of this on a consistent, permanent basis. No pressure, man. No pressure. Just
Pressure. I don't know. Today was fun, so I don't know.
And
Stars might be aligning.
the teaming of these movies, which is one of the things I'm was very excited about, because I want to do like a newer movie, and then I want to do like a random movie. And then Hilda was immediately, she's like, let's do Black Adam and Back to the Future too. And I was like, of course, those two things, of course, go together. Why wouldn't they go together? So I'm very happy for that. So thank you, Hilda, for that. And I'm sure we'll leave maybe up to the audience, or maybe if nobody responds, Hilda could come up with another great combination of two movies. I'm assuming Wakanda Forever has to be part of the reviews coming up soon.
I've already got some great ideas, especially with the holidays coming up.
Nice.
Especially with classics.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If you guys are watching this on video, either on Facebook or YouTube, which we live forever, you've noticed that I have a T-shirt that has the Movie Bros podcast logo on it. You could find that at TeePublic. All the links are in the bio. So thank you guys for checking us out. Appreciate you. Love you guys. And that's how movies are watched, guys. Peace.